Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. Today, after the old day job, I am off to check out the new horror film, Heretic. So what's the plot of this movie? Well, it tells the story of two religious young women who are held captive by a man who is, I guess you could say, testing their faith in a big maze. At least that's what it looks like. This movie is directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. It's starring Hugh Grant, Sophia Thatcher, and Chloe East. This movie looks freaking intense, and I'm not gonna lie, I have been looking forward to this movie for most of the year. I found out about this film a long time ago, saw a trailer for it, and was absolutely hooked. This is my kind of horror film. It doesn't look like it's gonna be abnormally jump scary. It looks like it's gonna be one hell of a slow burn creep fest. Well, maybe not so much of a slow burn, but it definitely looks like it's gonna be a big creep fest. And I also have heard people saying, well, now we get to see what Hugh Grant's gonna be like in a horror movie. Dude, have you not heard of Lair of the White Witch? He plays the hero in this, granted, but yeah, the dude's seen horror before, so don't worry about that whatsoever. I'm actually looking forward to him being the villain of this story. We don't really get to see Hugh Grant in too many villainous roles. So you know what, guys? It's enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on, because I got to get to the old day job, and then I'm off to check out Heretic. Welcome back, just getting home, and guys, I really enjoyed this movie. Now, at the end of the year, I always do a top 10 best films and top 10 horror films of the year, and I do not know what I'm going to do this year, guys, because I thought The Substance was easily going to take #1 in both of those, but then here comes Heretic, and now I don't know anymore, so I'm going to have to sit down and watch both of those movies back to back so I can make an educated decision. And to be perfectly honest, I'm okay with that, especially when it comes back to another viewing of Heretic. When I was leaving the movie theater, I was literally sitting there thinking to myself, I can't wait to see this movie again, see what little things I missed. And that's just how good of a movie it was. It's one of those films, when you leave the theater, you sit there and go, I cannot wait to see this movie again. This is a definite own it and put it in your collection. So let's find out all the great things I loved about this film. Now, normally I say negatives and positives, but as you can tell, I do not have anything negative to say about this film whatsoever, so we're just going to go into the things I loved about it. And the first thing I want to talk about is the acting. Our two leading ladies, Sophia Thatcher and Chloe East, were amazing. I was 100% convinced with their performances. They were just so good at playing their parts. Now, I am in kind of a heavily populated area for Mormons. I'm not a Mormon myself, but I've grown up around a lot of people who are. And so I know a few things about them. And these two ladies just nailed it. And I'm not talking about, like, you know, the Polly Pure Howard kind of nerdy attitude from people I've actually known who are Mormons, and just the way they talk, their mannerisms, the dialogue, everything was spot freaking on. They even brought up the differences between somebody who was born and raised in the church and somebody who converted into the religion. Not that there's a difference with them in like the hierarchy and all, it's just the way that the people view the religion and all and how they were in it. And this really, really brought some interesting details to this film, because I really think that the folks who made this movie, they knew a little bit of what was going on with all of this, because the history was definitely there. The acting was so spot on. These two young ladies were amazing. I cannot wait to see what else they're going to be putting out in the future, because once this film gets out into the public, I really think that this film is definitely going to be the big sleeper hit of the year, and we are going to see some really great things from the two of them later on down the road. Now, that's not to say that Hugh Grant wasn't amazing. This might be my favorite Hugh Grant movie I've ever seen, and I like Hugh Grant. This film was amazing. His performance was so good and spot on. He was a villain, and he wasn't one of those goofy, sympathetic villains. He was just a pure intellectual psychopath. This dude was so freaking high on his own supply, but he also knew it, which made him even more dangerous. You never knew what this guy was capable of through the entire film. He just seemed like this guy who was really into learning about religions, and then when the craziness starts to go, he really doesn't change the way he's acting. He doesn't like suddenly flip on a switch like, oh, here's goofy, charismatic guy who's trying to get you to believe that I'm just a normal Joe, nothing to worry about here. But he never drops it. He acts like that through the entire film. The character was so well developed and so well put together. I mean, one of my favorite villains so far I've seen in a horror film. The cinematography in this movie is also outstanding. There are so many amazing shots. The film does this trick that I absolutely love, and it's a good way of kind of confusing you and disorientating you. So let's just say the camera is zoomed in on Hugh Grant's face, and he says some like ha 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 type of deadly line. Well, then the camera does a pan around and then zoom right on the women's faces. And then they will respond and zoom back over to Hugh Grant. And I'm not saying like this camera is following them around. It's facing them, and then it spins around, or facing him, spins around, faces them, spins back to him. Very cool effect. There was also some neat, just like flipperoos. I don't know what it's called, to be perfectly honest. It's just where the camera is like kind of like upside down and comes back around. Like I said, they're shots meant to disorientate you, so you feel like what the characters are going through. And the cinematography did an outstanding job of that. Also, the sound design in this film. There were times that I honestly thought that there were people around me making noises, and I would look around and there wasn't. It was just in the speakers. Now, I did go see this film in what's known as the AMC Dolby, which is a hell of a sound system, so maybe that helped a little bit. So if you want to get the full-on experience, go see this at a theater with one hell of a sound system, because wow, when you just are sitting there sometimes, you just hear things all around you. Now, this film also, it seems like it's going to go into some, occulty or some kind of supernatural area. It plays that card a little bit, but it doesn't overwhelm you with it. It just kind of does it again to just try to disorientate you. But most of this film pretty well stays in something that maybe could happen. So that brings me to something that I would just want to throw out there, because I know that some of you, if you're not familiar with the Mormons, that you might not understand this, but the Mormons, and I think the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're some of the few religions that still kind of go door to door to people's houses. Now, there are rules that they have to follow, but as they did in this film, Hugh Grant's just this lovable, charismatic guy, and they were just like, oh, okay, your wife's inside? Sure. We'll break the rule and come on in. But she's there, right? And he's like, of course, which this is all in the trailer. Don't worry, I'm not spoiling nothing. But yes, this film exceeded expectations for me. I did not know what I was getting myself into. I thought I had an idea of what I was going to see. I thought this movie was going to be kind of like a Saw film, to be perfectly honest, and it was going to test their faith and everything, but no. No, it's not like that. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some blood and some gore in this film. There's a little bit. There is some violence in this movie also, but it doesn't get overwhelming. This is more of a thought-provoking film. This is the kind of movie that you walk away from and you immediately want to watch it again because you think you might have missed something. Not that it's confusing at all. It's just you want to go back and see everything unfold in front of your eyes again because you're just so blown away the first time you're watching it. So all in all, guys, I would have have to say this is a 100% get out there, see it in theaters, buy it on 4K steel box, watch all the special features. You see where I'm going with this. I really liked this movie. Alright guys, well that's enough of this, alright? Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.